In this tutorial, we will look into how to use logging in our Jakarta Java Enterprise Edition web application. We will review the logging essentials. We will focus on the Java logging frameworks of Apache Log4j and SLF4J. We will look at why logging is important in software development. These are the key reasons for logging. Helps out with crashes and errors, confirms critical steps, transaction and database authentication. We can scale up and down what we need in production. And we look at how logs are written. We've got console logs, flat files, network sockets, etc. And we'll look at how we can improve it. And then we also have a link here to the actual Log4j logging levels and log architecture. Very important to be aware of this aspect of logging. And then when we compare our frameworks, we basically see that Log4j is an actual comprehensive logging framework, whereas SLF4J is a facade that allows you to swap out the underlying logging implementation. And then we'll look at the integration of these two frameworks into our charity registration application. Now we're going to look into our course documentation. Follow the link to the logging document. Logging is a crucial aspect of software development. The key reasons for logging is to figure out why your application crashed, to learn all about errors and exceptions thrown in your code. And with Java, we always have this null pointer exception to deal with. Then there is dealing with external resources, such as MQs or databases that are not accessible. Then we have to deal with authentication, authorization, and transactional steps. And we often have legal requirements if we work in banking or healthcare to keep track of all of these things that happen. And that's what we use a log for. And then finally, we've seen the logging table levels, and we can scale it up and down as we need it and where we need it in our production. Now we look at how logs are written. The console or system out, which is what we've been using since the beginning of this course. Then there is flat files with the .log extension. We'll look at the challenges here. We need a lot of drive space and long-term storage. We can improve on this by moving over to XML or JSON format. Then for those of us already running in the cloud or in a distributed cluster, we will need sockets, SMS, and SMTP, and we'll need all the cloud tools to orchestrate our logs. Then there are built-in operating system tools we can use, such as syslog in Linux and the Windows event log in Windows. And then finally, there is database logging, which provides us with the advantage of easy querying. And many of the open source and commercial log stacks use NoSQL databases so that we have a continuous view into our application running in production. Now we look at the comparison between Log4j and SLF4J. So we see the purpose of Log4j is the login framework, and SLF4J is a facade that gives us an abstraction of our logging framework. Here is a high-level overview of our Log4j log levels. And we see we can use the facade to play around with that. So we directly use the Log4j library for logging, and SLF4J acts as a bridge or a facade. And here is the two main use cases. Next, we'll look at integration into our web application. We'll use our existing charity registration. And here is the integration steps. We'll add the dependencies in our Maven POM. We will initialize the loggers in our code. We will add log statements, so we'll replace our legacy system out with logging. And we will use a configuration file. And in conclusion, we are going to use the Log4j2's Fluent Logging API. And now over to Eclipse, and we look at our pom.xml first, and we see we're going to add the Log4j version here, and this is where our Log4j dependencies has been added. We also see our SLF4J implementation. And then let's look at our login servlet. We create a log, and then we have the log debug of user logged out. We have log debug of user about to be logged out. And then we have log info of user successfully logged in. And then important in relation to that, we have our log4j to XML definition file. We have a console appender. We have a rolling file appender to registration.log. And then we have three loggers. We have the root logger. We have the information logger. And we have another information logger. So the first one covers the pom.nicor designs, and the other one covers org.apache. So let's check in on how the login servlet works. So we'll do debug as, debug on server, select the server, finish. Here is our login page. And we have logged in. So we see we have an information log here on the console. And if we look at our code, this is where it's coming from. Now let's look at some more code. We have also added a logging filter here. The reason is to keep track of which user is associated with the session. And now we will demonstrate how we actually will be running and debugging using logging in a production environment. Here we have the Tomcat bin directory, and we'll run the startup.bat. And once we run it, we will demonstrate our logging by first logging in a user and registering some charities, and then logging out. And now we are going to the actual location of the log output, and we see we have a registration log, and we have a couple of Tomcat associated logs. So here is our registration log. Here is our Catalina log, quite verbose. And here is our localhost log. And this is what you will be doing when you're facing a problem in production. And that concludes this tutorial. I will see you in the next one.